55. 43 was that number, and Dark Mist got it. Challenge. Standard. 5. Game on. Here we go. Team White is ready to double the points. Let's go for a Botvinnik setup. Let's see. I've been playing that a bit, and we have it. I have it now. If I really want it, I have it. Actually, I've been experimenting with something a bit different. It's on my own. This silly little move. Let's see how bad it is. Is it bad? We're going to see about that. This is an important detail. If I did this right away, knight here is a pain. Or maybe it's not. No, I could have done this. So this is my idea. I want to be able to fiend kettle the bishop, but get a little bit more out of my g-pawn. I want to get a little bit more out of my g-pawn. So I inserted h3. It's a bit more on the aggressive side. So one idea behind this is what exactly? Well, it's that maybe I could throw my pawn up to f5. Opponent has to be cautious about playing this. I'm going to keep things close over here. I'm not so quick to do what exactly? I'm not so quick to give this rook play along the h-file. So I don't want to touch this pawn, as otherwise the knight would jump in here. These pawns are battling for the g4 square. I do best to just keep them sitting. If I push forward, the bishop could maybe even be causing me some issues. Now, if I play my bishop here, the knight could jump into this square. Pawn push would weaken this square. I don't want to touch this pawn either. It gives the e5 square up. So bishop e3. Maybe just bishop e3. If knight here, I back my bishop up, and then I'm ready to take. Let's get my development complete. Queen d2 as well. And you know what? I might even want to move forward. I might even want to play d4. So as a result, maybe knight here is needed. And this seems not correct. Why not? Why not? What's so wrong about that? The b pawn I don't have to worry about. Sometimes it's this knight pawn that will challenge this. So do I play b3 and then this? This knight could be out of bounds. He could be not out of bounds. There's a better way to say it. He could be out of play. So if I do this right away, well, let me threaten to do this. I'm in a pin. But you know what? Maybe even in some cases I could just give up this rook for the bishop and play on the dark squares. So I'm looking to throw my d-pawn in, and I believe that this is something my opponent should not have allowed. So d4, I have some concern because my king is on this diagonal. So d4 takes, knight takes. I wouldn't have any pin issue. Bishop takes, queen c5. I think I'd be okay in that ending, in large part due to this knight simply being out of play. This structure alone, the b3 and c4 structure, means that this knight struggles. And additionally, I might be looking to launch forward there with d5, take with the knight first. Don't want to give up my dark square bishop. In fact, I want to challenge this guy. Okay, and now maybe something that I'd look to do is not exchange so many pieces. Yeah, actually, I'm going to drop my knight back because I think what my opponent is ready to do is take my knight, and after the recapture, bishop c6, and then all the pieces are, they have good squares, but he's still stuck. Whoa, I did not expect that. Let's get the queen opposite, or the rook opposite both queen and king, and now this seems very dangerous. In fact, this seems just winning now. Yeah, this was just a losing move. Rook c1, opposite both king and queen. It's very logical to do that move, but now I'm hitting the knight twice, and now capture towards the center, peel open the c-file, and that's going to be game over, right? There's no tricky stuff. My opponent is saying, whoops. It's easy to do. You see that sometimes in the Marazzi bind out of the Sicilian Marazzi bind. So how to be as clean as possible about this? Just take the knight first, or is there anything better? I'm not seeing anything better. Let's take the material, and The next order of business is to make sure that this dark square bishop is no longer a problem. Bishop here, e5 could be annoying. That could generate some play. In fact, I don't want the d file to open. I'd much rather keep it where it's just the c file that's opened. This seems sensible enough. Just offer the queen exchange. I have e4 protected. Offer the queen exchange and defend a2. I'm also connecting my rooks. One day there might even be a sacrifice on c6 just to get some attack with e5 to follow. So knight here looks very appealing. I'm getting the bishop pair and I'm also getting on the dark squares. So one of these bishops is going to go. Light square or the dark square. My opponent gets to decide, but either way I have two bishops on these adjacent diagonals. Take with my queen. Queen check here. The king has to go into a pin. It's going to pin the bishop. I can also just look to do, what, double on the c file. Queen here. 1 minute 45. Time should not be an issue. I have pressure on the rook as well. Maybe in some cases an important detail is knowing that because you have pressure on this rook, if there's some cases where the rook is here and the rook takes mine, I can maybe interject the throw in queen takes rook first with check in some cases. How to just be as squeaky clean as possible. Well, the bishop can't move. The bishop I could view as just being pinned. Can't move. If the bishop moves, it's mate on the spot. The bishop is pinned, so recognizing that, I know that since the bishop can't move, this rook isn't a bother. If this pawn moves, I get this pawn. Actually, if this pawn moves, I could still be throwing in a check. So let's see. I could even just do this. I probably should have just been doing this. Get a queen trade. Stick my bishop on this dark square. b6 attacks the rook. Yeah, so much for that. Okay, this I probably should have been doing. The queen is close to trapped. Oh yeah, this is picking up a full rook now. Not a full rook, I'll be up a full rook after this. Queen here, I have this check. Oh, I didn't see that though. Let's just defend everything. Let's just defend everything. 1 minute warning. I should have done this sooner. Okay, let's make sure I get on this only open file. Get my bishop back to this b6 square. That's where it wanted to be. The bishop is back to being pinned. Back to being pinned. Let's stop that from going any further. Pawns on dark. Probably just capture there. Okay, definitely now. I could have done it sooner and then followed up with this, I think. Although, no. There would have been a d5 push. Okay, my opponent's just going to play this one out. So, bishop's check. Alright. And just get this pawn. Bishop here, you can pre-move the rest, pretty much. And then run that g pawn. My bishop will go here to stop the king from making use of this e8 square to track the pawn down. Alright, they resigned. Yeah, it's there's a tough pin. There was no recovering from that one right there. Good game. Let's back up. So, proceed with caution. I don't know if this is the right idea, but it's something that I was trying to get a little bit more out of the Botvinnik setup. I don't know if it's already a setup, but this h3 and then g4, a bit more on the aggressive side, a bit more weakening. I was touching on this part right here. I thought that there's a difference between d3 and g4. Like if I did d4 right now, after knight e5, it eyes f3, d3, and threatens the pawn. And I believe the only response to that would be knight g3, allowing the queen to guard this f3 square, and the bishop would control d3 and c4. And then actually, it would be okay. Maybe in some sense, if I play g4, knight here might seem very appealing, threatening a mate in 1. But looking a bit deeper, it'll end up losing time, because after the knight plays to g3, I defend those threats, and then when f4 comes, it'll come with tempo. Unless I'm missing something, but I don't think I am. So I think that g4 is still available. And maybe even better in some sense, because this d-pawn then retains its flexibility. And maybe I could get in d4 in one shot and kind of transpose to a Sicilian Marazzi bind. Okay, anyhow, we went to some type of Botvinnik setup. d4 I thought is something my opponent should have been running with. Or excuse me, knight d4. This just turns out to be a waste of time, so there's of course some correction that could be made there. And knight here, it's difficult to find a good plan, isn't it? Maybe h4 is not a good idea, allowing me to just do what? To control this f6 square? Maybe you want to be able to pivot here. I'm not so sure. Another idea is to do what? Still just castle and then allow this knight to go on that typical journey by way of e8, c7, e6, and then jump in here, focusing on d4. So maybe that's a better thing to go forward with. I was feeling pretty comfortable at this point because you're losing time, and also when the knight decided to go to this square, he turned out to be a very... he was just out of play, right? So there's an adjustment there. That's my recommendation, really, to be castling instead of h5, to be castling right here after g4. Still go with castle, maybe knight e8, c7, e6, d4. And this bishop, well, it's tough to get him doing anything but just yet, but focusing on d4 first. That's my main suggestion. And maybe what you could be doing, if you take, I recapture, my queen has a strong post. I think no matter what, this is just a good structure. No matter what you do at this point, I think the white side is better. Because of this guy, everything just kind of points in my eyes to this knight on b6. 2 pawns cancel him out. So this was the last part, really. I avoid the exchange, I have a space advantage, typical idea, and now it's very difficult already. This just is probably already lost, right? Castle queenside, rook on c1, knight here, probably no matter what. Even if you were to defend it with this, you could probably still do that. And with 2 bishops bearing down on your king side, or what's now the queen side here, big trouble. And then it's just making sure there's no complications, right? Finishing up. Alrighty. Good game, Dark Mist. Let me close out of this and